anyone else here? I don't know.
Did you share the link?
I did. We are live now. Through Facebook can see us. We're gonna be driving for office hours. I just picked up Aaron from the airport, so I'm gonna shoot you all right there. And trying not to help you too much. Try and get on Instagram now before we start going out here, and see what we do with that. We're gonna talk about today. I want to talk about that testing report that I just mentioned. I'm not going to say her name. So Rachel shows up. I was going to remain stuff of it. Okay. We shoot her a message. See if she can get on here. And I can also pull it. Yeah, we can pull that one up. So we can talk about that testing report. Rachel a message in Slack. First send the link to Cody via email in case he wants to do this as well. Talk to Kevin. A little bit of updates on fire from this week. I even thought an interesting thing last night to talk through was, as I read through the reviews that people were leaving us, I'm curious to know, what are our users benefiting most from, right? We provide tips, we provide templates, sometimes we provide just, one mentioned it, or you like the emotional support. It's just like, it's a book about something. Let's actually listening to the questions that I have. So it could be interesting for some of those. Like, hey, what are the benefits our users are experiencing? Can we provide more of that? Because sometimes it's not always what we expect it to be. It's not always the fact that you got a little bit more money at this point. There's plenty of places we can go. Give it a second. Try the Instagram. I was go to Instagram here. No, not sorry. You don't have an app. No, you unapp yourself from Instagram. Let me see if I can do things at once. Well, first, see what happens. Danielle's here.
That's great. That's great.
Let us know once you're here. You're not coming to my. So if you are, you got Rachel as well.
Okay, can you hear
How
me?
we doing?
Affirmative.
How we doing?
Perfect.
You are. They're not coming out of.
I can't.
Audio channel input.
You're very
Audio channel input.
digitized when you talk, Cameron.
Yeah, it's cutting in and out.
Is that better now?
Yeah.
How about now?
That's better.
All right. I don't know why. There we go. Is that any better now?
Yes.
Sorry, we're in the car. We're going to be in the car. I had to pick Aaron up from the airport. But we didn't want to cancel office hours. This is when we all get to hang out.
That's right.
I'm going to try and see if I can push it to Instagram. Did that kick me off when I did that?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, it did.
It did for a second. Okay. I'm just not going to try. We're not going to stream on Instagram today. They don't leave the best comments anyways. Not to you. That's the YouTube ones. If the phone falls, Aaron, you'll be in charge of it. Rachel, one of the things that I wanted to chat about today is
I'm not going to say the user's name, but you mentioned to me that there's a user that got his testing report back, and I would love for you to read. I skimmed it, and I saw that there was a recommendation in there for gutting the entire house.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something that that user thought might be appropriate, and yeah, and we'll talk about why there's a very good chance that it is appropriate, because of the how much fire debris was around that house. So, anyways, if you could pull that up so that when I ask you to shortly, you'll be
Yeah.
able to reference it. That'd be awesome.
Got it. Yeah.
Um,
And I have multiple clients as well with the CIH requesting or recommending a full gut.
oh, really? Is it all with the same testing company that we're talking about that did
Yes.
the? Okay. Cool. Aaron, the microphone might be in my ear, so you may have to talk towards my head occasionally. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we can't hear Aaron.
Okay. Interesting. It's funny. I might be able to set it up to come through both microphones, but actually, it might be a noise suppression thing that would be easy to change in the settings in a moment. So Aaron might have to relay his questions through me, would be what he has to do, because he can hear you guys just fine. Just a second. But while we're here, one of the settings options was noise suppression. Oh no, it says it's not supported in Safari. Stereo audio input. All right, Aaron, try saying something now. All right. Okay. Anyways, if you end up being able to hear Aaron, let us know, because then he'll talk more.
Nope, couldn't
But
hear him.
okay. Let's start with this. So I'll open it up. We got a testing report back for a user that's in the Altadena fire area. They were surrounded by houses that burned down. So every house on every side of them burned down. We have a lot of users in a very similar situation. And I mean, Cody Shaver and I and Aaron were in Altadena last week looking at one of our users' houses, and just in the context of everything that burned around them. And you're looking at it, and it's so clear why a house like that might need to be gutted. It's just like how much smoke and fire debris likely got in the walls, because it had siding, it didn't have stucco. There were plenty of gaps that fire debris and smoke would have gotten in. And that house in particular that we were at, I remember talking to the user after their first inspection with the insurance company, and they were like, yeah, I walked through it with the adjuster, and the adjuster told me that they couldn't even, it was the week after the fire, that they couldn't even smell the smoke anymore, and that it might not even need to get paint. I'm not kidding. I think this is a claim that you're actually working on, Danielle, because they were a tugboat user first. And the last name starts with a D.
Yeah. I was,
Um,
that's the one that came to mind when you started talking about the situation.
Yeah, and we were just looking at that house, and it's like, goodness, this house was literally, because it's set back, and it has two houses in front of it, two houses on each side of it, and then a house in the back, and its own detached garage, and all of those structures that I just explained burned down. And so it's just like this house was the middle of a fire and somehow didn't burn down, and it has siding on it. It's like that.
It's
That
like
place is gonna smell.
100-year-old house.
Oh yeah. So all that to say, yeah, I spoke with them right after that first inspection, and they were telling me what the adjuster said. And the funny thing is, this is just a coincidence. It was the same adjuster who we at Waypoint had worked with on a claim from Colorado that has been really rough. And that adjuster had,
Oh,
and we,
gosh. I know you.
that adjuster had left from Colorado, where they were just doing a bang up job, and made their way to California to try and ruin some lives after the Eaton fire as well.
Man.
But I remember, yeah, they said this was like, again, a week. It was the week that people were allowed in there, which I think was a week or two after the fires. And they told the homeowners, like, I can't really smell anything in here anymore. Like, I'm not even sure if it'll need to get painted. And you look at it now, and you're just like, how? And I mean, I can't even believe it. So all that to say, the report that you're about to read is a very similar situation, right? They saved their house by staying behind, hosing it down, keeping the fire at bay, uh, just so they could now argue with their insurance company about removing some drywall to try and take out the insulation that is likely affected in the walls.
Ruh-roh.
We lost you, Cameron.
Well, I wonder if we tried to kick me out. Are we back?
You're back?
Okay,
But I can't see
cool.
you.
Yeah, we were gone for a second there. So anyway, Rachel, if you could read through the summaries sections of that report. So talk through what was tested for, what the results were, and as quick a way as you can, so we get a summary of that, and then we'll get to the recommendations. So I'll let you take it over for a second here. And what we're talking about again, the report that came back for a house that's still standing, asbestos, heavy metals, and I think that's it, right? Because heavy metals includes the arsenic and cyanide and all those things.
Yeah. Well, this actually, the way this summary is kind of done, it talks about contents, like it says contents and then structure, like kind of with, it's comprehensive with the recommendations. So, but I'll read the summary. So based on a comprehensive post-fire environmental assessment, including analysis of sampling data, visual inspection findings, evaluation of carcinogenic and toxigenic risks, and the property's proximity to total loss structures, all contents within the affected structure have been determined to be non-salvageable due to contamination resulting from the wildland-urban interface fire. The assessment identified widespread and elevated concentrations of hazardous substances, including but not limited to high concentrations of levels of soot and char particulates deeply embedded in porous materials and surfaces, levels of lithium residue above the limit of detection, likely originating from combusted batteries and electronic devices, cyanide compounds formed during the thermal decomposition of synthetic materials were present throughout, beryllium, a highly toxic metal posing serious respiratory risks even at trace levels, high levels of lead originating from a combusted paint, dust, and building materials. Due to the combination of hazardous chemical exposure, structural intrusion of airborne toxins, and direct fire-related damage, none of the personal property or interior contents can be safely cleaned, restored, or reused. As such, all contents are deemed a total loss and require disposal in accordance with hazardous waste protocols where applicable. So it only talked about 5 things, really. Let me see if I can go back another section and tell you everything that was tested for.
No, sorry, no, it says there's a section that says to the studs.
Yeah, that's next.
Okay,
so that's next.
Gotcha.
All right. So that was just the contents part of the summary. So the next section is down to the studs. Following a comprehensive post-fire environmental assessment, including visual inspection findings and laboratory analysis, it is recommended that the structure be fully remediated down to the studs due to the presence of persistent carcinogenic and toxigenic contaminants. The property was impacted by a wildland-urban interface fire, and the following conditions support the recommendation for full interior demolition. Concentrations of soot present throughout the home, including within wall cavities, indicating deep and widespread infiltration. Detection or suspected presence of hazardous chemicals and residues, including residual cyanide, a byproduct of burning synthetic materials, highly toxic and difficult to neutralize. Lithium, released from combusted batteries and electronics, corrosive and reactive in moist environments. Beryllium, a potent lung carcinogen, hazardous at extremely low concentrations. Lead, from historical paint, dust, and debris, neurotoxic and persistent. Barium, toxic metal with adverse effects on the cardiovascular and nervous systems. Zinc, can interfere with biological systems at elevated levels. And I don't know this word, acetonitrile, a volatile solvent released from burning plastics, toxic and flammable. Acetonitrile. I've never heard of that. So, all right. So, given the extent of contamination and the inability to clean these materials from porous structural components, complete demolition to the studs is necessary to eliminate health hazards and restore the home to a habitable condition. Cyanide levels detected are below the lab's reporting limits, reducing the likelihood a full gut is needed. But any trace still supports treating all soft porous goods as unsalvageable because verifying each item is free of cyanide would destroy it. Soot presence in all areas, especially within the wall cavities, indicates extensive fire impact. Combustion byproduct residues will settle on household surfaces and contents, including electronics, HVAC systems, and soft goods. The presence will lead to corrosion, degradation of materials, and health risks. Typically, cleaning is not feasible due to the acidic and toxic nature of fire-related contaminants, necessitating replacement of affected items. Due to the presence of elevated levels of lead dust present in multiple locations in the home, lead-contaminated dust is refined in the California Code of Regulations, Title 17, Section 35035, as dust containing lead at or above 10 micrograms per square foot for interior floor surfaces or 100 micrograms per square foot for interior horizontal surfaces. Lead-contaminated dust, defined by the EPA, reduced the levels of lead in dust that is hazardous from 10 micrograms for the interior floor surfaces to 5 micrograms for interior floors, and from 100 micrograms for interior windowsills to 40 micrograms per square foot for windowsills. The settled dust samples taken in the home indicate levels above the threshold established by the state of California and the EPA. As such, lead abatement is necessary to properly clean the home and remove lead-containing dust. Abatement is to be completed only by a lead abatement contractor as outlined in Title 8 of the California COR. The composition of smoke from a wildland urban interface fire
Rachel,
becomes even more hazardous.
Can I have you pause for a second?
Yeah.
The section I didn't quite catch. Were they saying that cleaning is an option, but it may not be successful without doing a full gut?
So it said, all right, given the extent of contamination and the inability to clean these materials from porous structural components, complete demolition to the studs is necessary to eliminate health hazards and restore the home to a habitable condition.
That's great. Okay. No, that's fine. And then I know one of the challenges that people are going to have, I don't think this user should have, I mean, not that it's going to be easy. I think this is going to be a challenge for them to get this full gut approved. But there are some users that, because cyanide came back positive a lot of different houses, even when lead was not elevated enough, cyanide was. And cyanide's really scary for people for really understandable reasons. The problem in California, it's not a regulated substance for remediation. So the insurance company can essentially say, yeah, fine, we're going to pay to clean it, but we don't even have to pay for an abatement company to do it because it's not regulated like lead, asbestos, and I'm assuming lithium is regulated because that's a pretty common one for batteries.
Yeah.
But it sounds like there's quite a bit in this one, and she tested inside the wall cavities. So that is why they're able to recommend the full gut as well. So now let's think of it. So this user just got this report today. Tugboat's going to be helping them present this report to their insurance company by, giving them a template letter on how to send it to their carrier, right? What tone do you think? And I'll let Aaron maybe speak to this some too. I know you guys can hear him, but I'll relay what he's saying. But what tone do you think this user should be taking as they send it? Is it just hey, I just got this report back, here it is? Are they making the full ask? Are they pointing out, hey, but this thing says my house needs to be fully gutted. Are you approving this right now? So how should something like this be presented to the insurance company in your opinion?
I definitely would just drop it on them. I would definitely, in my adjusting experience, if I received this report, I would hope someone would ask me what this means for the remediation plan by the insurance company. Like, give me an opportunity to do right first, before demands, just so I can, because that puts the adjuster in a difficult spot to just go, yeah, I'm in, or no, because that's what they're going to
So
say.
explain that
right?
to me.
They're going to say
Explain
no.
an adjuster being in a difficult spot. Why would an adjuster, so I think it's a good thing for people to understand. Why would an adjuster ever be put
Yeah,
in a difficult spot by someone making a request to them?
because management has set the tone through some, internal guidelines. We're not accepting anything more than this. Like, they've set the benchmark. And when you get something above that benchmark with demands, it puts the adjuster like, well, first of all, what it does to them internally is horrible, because this is a difficult spot to be in for the policyholder, and hopefully the adjuster has empathy and feels their difficult spot. But if this is presented with inquisitively, how does this change the estimate you prepared for us? I think that keeps it, whatever good rapport may be built in between the two, more of a teamwork kind of position.
Yeah, I think that's a great question to pose. That how does this change the estimate that's been provided so far? And it throws the ball into their court.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point that you made. I haven't thought about it really that way before, but don't put your adjuster in a position that is difficult for them. Uh, and it would be really hard for the average person to know what that is, right? Unless you understand adjusting and understand how guidelines work
Yeah.
and understand. I've explained this a lot before, but it's a lot easier to avoid a no than to overcome a no, right? Like, because once someone says no, especially like when it's a full denial, we talked about this a lot. Especially like
Mhm.
trying to get our first denial overturned with Tugboat users very in the early days of, man, like for an adjuster to overturn their denial, they kind of have to admit, or we thought like they have to admit that they were wrong, and nobody wants to admit they were
Yeah.
wrong. So that's going to be really difficult. But then we kind of realized, well, there are ways that you can open up some lanes so someone doesn't have to admit they were wrong. Instead,
Right.
you can present it, even when you're not presenting new information, maybe you're representing old information. If you present it like it's something new, that gives the adjuster a way out, right? Because then they can say, oh, thanks for presenting this new information. Now that I have it, I can reconsider this position. It's because I didn't know this before that I couldn't say yes. And now they're not changing their mind. They're not saying they were wrong. They just didn't have all the information yet,
Right.
even though they may have. And giving adjusters that out is, I think, really wise as often as you can do it so that they don't have to go and admit that they were wrong. Nobody likes to admit they were wrong. Nobody likes to admit they were wrong. And
No.
you can get in trouble for it if you're wrong on the as an adjuster. So
Yeah.
anyways, it's a really astute point to say, like, don't put your adjuster in the challenging position. If I was going to summarize what you were saying is, if you ask something in the wrong way, an adjuster is obligated to say no to you, right? So if you were to just ask your adjuster, hey, uh, is it approved that I can gut my house? This report says that I need to. Like, they're pretty well obligated to say no. This isn't because they need to make sure that they are not approving for you to gut your house tomorrow, right? If you do that,
Right.
you are like stepping over a line. So you're making it so they're going to have to say no to you to something right there. And so I think your way of presenting is obviously much better. So, how does this report change the estimate that you've provided so far? We obviously know where that we're hoping that goes, but I think that's really great.
Right.
Well, and then the adjuster
Yeah.
can rely on the expert report, right? And so it's not
Exactly.
their opinion or their recommendation, it's the expert that was providing this report to recommend a full gut.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
for sure. That's super helpful. Anything else from that, Rachel, that we should go over that testing report?
No, I mean, it's for me, it's the only, not the only, but one big obstacle I see is them pulling in another testing company, and because
They
they
will.
will, they'll be silly not to. What?
Yeah,
Then you're going to come
Aaron
to the
said they have an infinite
position.
budget for second testing companies.
No kidding. Yeah, your budget's very minimal, but my budget is, yeah. So what I'm worried about is people that do this, and then they have the situation where my expert says this and your expert says that. Now, while there are California codes that, like, ensure that things are weighed, have the same weight, I don't really feel like that's observed. And this is going to get, I hate to forecast negatively, but this is going to go sideways.
Yeah.
Like it just is.
Yeah.
I don't care how gently it's presented. It's not. Ugh.
I mean, one of the.
So we're just
Go ahead, Danielle.
I was gonna say, in my experience so far, it's getting ugly. Like it really is, because they send out their own vendor to test for lead and asbestos, and then we're requesting additional testing for cyanide, and I can't even list the names of the different things. And they're like, no, we don't need to. Our CIH says we don't need to test for these things. It's too far from the data loss. Like these things no longer matter. And in my opinion, I'm like, what? They absolutely matter.
Yeah.
They make a huge difference on the repairs that are needed, or the recommendations, the scope of loss, or scope of damage. I mean, it absolutely makes a difference, but they're denying additional testing right now.
I think too, for adjusters, for us, for everyone, it really needs to be more public knowledge on what is the remediation requirement for this substance. What is the remediation requirement for this substance? How do we? I feel like we're in the Wild Wild West.
The problem with that is that, like arsenic, for instance,
And lead.
Yeah, but
Yes,
like for arsenic, right? There is no protocol. There is no level of arsenic that needs to be done a certain way, or formaldehyde or cyanide or whatever the case may be. And so I actually went on a reinspection today, and the adjuster was like, well, if there's arsenic present, the lead cleaning should clean that up.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but they're two.
Yeah, and again, with those ones, you'd be hard to enforce any of those too hard, because those cyanide is not a regulated substance, and arsenic is not a regulated substance for how it needs to get cleaned up. And so if you were going to argue with the adjuster about what needs to get paid for there, and they say, well, we'll pay for the lead protocol, you're getting as far as you're going to get on that argument, most likely. I think a lot of the challenge is going to be with adjusters that really, not adjusters, but insurance companies and executives that make a decision top down to really say, hey, we're going to leave this up to the courts, because we know that sometimes we can get a beneficial decision even when the chances are low that we should get one, right? So a good example might be these, right? So these large testing invoices, right? That this testing one that we were just talking about, that's an expensive testing that was done. It's really thorough, took a long time, and it was expensive. So they got that whole report, they send it in. The insurance company, what if they do, and I hope they don't, but what if they say, you know what, we're just going to ignore this, or just we're going to send out our own testing company. We know that they're not going to make these same recommendations, and worst case scenario, we end up in court, and we'll see if we have genuine disputes still, since we did still send out an expert. So we're not going to be accused of bad faith for this. So worst case scenario, maybe we'll have to pay the damages on this a year and a half from now, meaning we'll have to pay this testing invoice then, but why not put in the effort now and between now and then to try and see if we never have to instead of precedent? That's what I think is some of the risk that's there. So we'll grab our stuff and head out of the office.
I think you're probably right. I think that they're willing to, keep the reserves where they are and see where the chips fall. I think you're probably right, Cameron.
And I don't think every insurance company will. Can you grab my backpack as well from back there?
In my opinion, I feel like they're throwing spaghetti at the wall. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And minimizing, like really, like most insurance carriers have minimized this event. So they've made it to where these smoke claims, which should have been closed by now, if I'm being honest. Look, it wasn't a total loss. Get in there with the testing, get it done, remediate, let these people go home. We are 6 months and 2 days from the fire. And I have total loss people that are about to break ground. and these smoke damage people are no closer to getting home than the total loss people.
Absolutely. And I know we discussed this before, but they're using the ALE to hold over their heads. It seems like they're like, oh, well, you should have cleared by now.
Yeah. It's really, it's sad. Like speechless. I'm not often so, but I am. This is very, very painful.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm about to set up my computer so we can both be on here again. So give me just 1 second as we reset the setup here.
Yeah. I did read, just for your awareness, I don't think I mentioned it to anybody. I have a tugboat user that had the insurance company sent their hygienist out, and it was very basic stuff. And the person has medical things that make her very vulnerable to VOCs and PAHs, which we all are, but especially her. She's got asthma and a heart condition. And it's like dioxins aren't even in the vocabulary of anyone. Like that, it's not, I don't know. It's very strange. And the problem is, well, those are, it's still damage. If those things exist and that damage is not acknowledged at all. And if you ask the insurance company's remediators, they're like, oh, this cleans it. If they do a cleaning, a HEPA sandwich, it'll fix everything. But what they're not getting is that if that's going on, then there are damages not yet tested. They don't really know the extent of the damages. If PAHs and VOCs and dioxins are present, they don't know the extent of the damage yet. So they shouldn't be weighing in. If all they test was for lead, asbestos, ash, soot, and char, the true extent of the damage just isn't known.
Rachel, which company is it that is being used by? I think it's Farmers Insurance for testing.
Hygiene Tech.
Testing.
Mm-hmm.
What's it called?
Mm-hmm. Hygiene Tech.
Never heard of them before.
Mm-hmm.
I have a farmer's claim that's using Safeguard, which is a huge.
That's what I thought it was, and an interesting point on that.
Yeah, another one of those.
An interesting point on them using Safeguard is I was looking up Ricardo Lara's update email from last week on their smoke damage authority council that they've appointed. And one of the people on the council for smoke damage, where they're trying to come up with regulations around this stuff, is one of the executives of Safeguard.
Well, from my understanding, what I heard is that the owner, I guess, of Safeguard, like the original owner of Safeguard, helped create the standard.
I think so. Well, the standard is from like 17 years ago. So, like, are we serious? Like, is that even like how many WUI fires have we had since then? And we know nothing more. Really, I find that very hard to believe, and I discount that immediately. Like, I know I'm not a hygienist, but nope, there's got to be more. I'm sorry.
Makes sense. Let me throw us up actually live on Instagram while we're here, because now we can actually do it while we spend the last 15, 20 minutes talking through some stuff. Aaron, what else do we have to talk through? We had
I mean, we had some reviews, but on this topic though, because
you can hear Aaron now, right? Okay.
Oh, that's great. It's nice to be heard. So, because you were talking briefly, Cameron, about them maintaining genuine dispute. And there was a conversation we were just having with Cody about it. And it kind of matters the order that things happen in, right? So, like, if they were to send out the expert before you sent them out, well, then it would make it difficult for them to maintain their genuine dispute, because then they would have to acknowledge your expert report when it came after. And if they ignore that, it's like, oh, you're ignoring an expert opinion. You don't have genuine dispute. But if you send yours out and then they send theirs, and they're not going to approve theirs, so it's approved to counter yours. So they've got the game kind of fixed a little bit. But that genuine dispute argument is basically their defense against being accused of bad faith. And it can evaporate if they ignore expert opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
I've got one that has hygiene tech went out, and then the tugboat user has another company coming out, and they said, yeah, you can do it all you want. We're not paying for it. And so I'm trying to keep the conversation open until that report arrives. Like, well, let's talk about this, just to keep it, again, nice, kind, inquisitive, but why? Because California code says, your expert is just as, the opinion is weighted just as heavily as mine. So why wouldn't you pay for mine? And your expert only tested for this, and I'm testing for this, which these things affect me where yours do also. These are special things for me, which were not present before the law. So I'm trying to keep the conversation going.
Yeah, one of the angles to kind of take with that, because like them approving testing, like, is also acknowledging that it's necessary, and them denying your vendor is denying your ability to choose one. If they're like, oh, we're not going to pay for your guy because we already paid for ours. Like, that's, like, when you paid for yours, you acknowledged the necessity, and when you didn't pay for mine, like, you're just denying my right to choose my own vendor, which is clearly my right. So it's a good place to keep the conversation, for sure.
Yep. Just try, and I actually said that too in the letter today. Like, but you see it's needed. You did it. So
I think it's actually a little bit more absurd is when it happens in the other direction. So there's a Waypoint client from the Camarillo wildfires. We've talked about this one in the past, but it's been a while, where the insured had testing done. The carrier never had any testing done, and the insured had heard from his neighbors and from vendors like, hey, we're getting results back on up here, just so you know, that are really heavy with lead and asbestos. And probably a good idea for you to check. So he decided to go ahead and get testing done, paid for them to come out. Testing comes out positive for soot, char, ash, lead, asbestos. Literally all of them are present in this house. After some initial cleaning had been done, but not abatement protocol. And the carrier's response to that was to send their own testing, and then to say, hey, we're not going to pay for your testing. And is pretty adamant about it. They're going to lose this dispute, I think, almost certainly.
Yeah.
I think they would know it. But it's like the absurdity of it. It's like, wait. We're not arguing whether testing is necessary, because you also sent out someone to test after I sent someone out to test. And it wasn't like I sent somebody out to test and they found that everything was negative. So you could make this argument that, like, hey, testing was never really necessary because there was never anything there, even though that's still wrong.
Mhm.
Like they can't.
If it could affect protocol,
Yeah.
it's justified.
Yeah. So, but there's like no leg to stand on. And yet they're like, well, you didn't ask us if you could, literally, like the thing that they have said on this claim, you didn't ask us if you could have testing done. And we didn't give you our permission to have it done, and therefore have the option of choosing the vendor of who's going to do it. So we're going to send our own after the fact, who's going to verify all the same things. And lo and behold, verified every single thing that was tested for by the first company. And then they're going to say like, but we're not going to pay for yours because we can pay for who we want to.
Yeah, the results were right. Yes, we should honor them to begin with, but we're not going to pay for it, and we're going to pay for ours.
Yeah. And the interesting part of it is, so on this one, I think that the argument that they're trying to make, because they've talked through it a little bit, is that I'll explain really fast. I think Cody talked through this 2 weeks ago. There's a difference between something being paid under coverage and something being paid as an expense of the claim. So your coverage is your dwelling, your other structures, your contents. You guys all know this. Those are the limits that are on your deck page on your insurance policy. And expense is what the insurance company pays to investigate your claim. Right? It's what they pay the independent adjuster to come and inspect it. It's what they might pay a contractor to write an estimate. And testing, we will usually ask that they pay as an expense on the claim. And the reason is you don't want it to count against someone's limits, especially if they're going to hit their limits potentially. You don't want it to count against it. And so the carrier is using that against the homeowner in this instance because they're saying, and we didn't
It's
even
not a coverage thing.
we didn't even argue that it should, because on this one we didn't care. He's not going to hit limits, so we're like, you can pay it under the claim. You don't have to pay it as an expense. Pay it under coverage.
Yeah.
But they're like, well, no, testing is an expense. They're taking that stance now, all on their own. Testing's an expense, which is an investigation expense, and we can investigate this however we choose to, and we choose not to use your testing vendor, and we're just going to pay our own. That's not
going to hold up.
Isn't that crazy?
That's crazy. Yeah, that's
clever.
absolutely
It's a little
not.
clever.
I don't know. No, it's maniacal. Right? That's
that's poor management because that's coming
yeah.
from the
adjuster's
manager.
not just making that up. Yeah.
Yeah, the adjuster doesn't know any better, and that manager also doesn't know any better.
Manager.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
bad management.
it's a manager who doubled down on this. I had an attorney who knows the manager on this one talk to the manager. I was like, can you just call them and like let them know that this sounds absurd? And it was coming down from high up on that one. They had determined, this carrier had determined that's how they were handling testing invoices from this point forward when it came to fires.
Mhm.
Like this is our guidelines.
And
We-
it's what you talked about, like let's let the courts decide. They're
Yeah.
just kicking the can.
Yeah.
Because they like it's something that they might get out of it on, right? They won't get out of it if they do the right thing. And it's expensive for the homeowner.
Yeah.
So it's like, hey, we can't lose here.
So, there's lots of different ways that it is playing out, and it's still going to continue being rough for the homeowner. That's for sure. I talked about this with, who was it? I feel like it was someone that we talked to that has a CFP claim 2 days ago. We were talking to someone who was asking about Tugboat, and he's like, well, I have a California Fair Plan claim. House is still standing. And he was asking, we can actually get into some of the reviews after this. He was asking essentially like, what do we have to offer for the worst policy? Like, he's like, I know that they're going to treat me horribly. I know that I'm likely going to have to file a lawsuit. So like, what's the point of even using Tugboat at this point, right? If I'm going to have to go through all these things and it's going to be horrible no matter what. And it was pretty cool to be able to talk through and be like, oh, let me actually explain why you especially want to use Tugboat now.
Documentation.
Yeah. Like documentation is so important. You can talk to any attorney, and we know this. It was a theory very early on when we started Tugboat. We're like, hey, we think if Tugboat works well, attorneys will be more likely to want to work with our users than with the average homeowner. And it's totally been true.
Yep.
Totally been true. I remember the first time it was Cody, one of the first claims we sent to him, or that a Tugboat user asked for a referral. They went to him, and once he dug in with that homeowner and saw how well they had documented everything, because usually something bad happens in a claim, and all there is for documentation is a homeowner got a letter from an insurance adjuster that they were upset about. Maybe they responded with an angry email, maybe a phone call, and that's kind of it, right? And it just kind of sits there and stagnates, and people get mad, and then they try to hire an attorney, and the attorney says, well, what happened? And they say, well, they sent me this denial letter, and it's bad faith. And the attorney reads it, and he's like, it's wrong, but it's not bad faith. And like no, it's horrible. Like they said this about my damage when they inspected. Oh, did they put it in writing? No. Okay. Yeah. So we just don't have bad faith, right?
Yeah. Not documented, not done.
With this, one of these first ones that he looked at for a tugboat user that was looking for an attorney on their claim eventually. So this was someone that was unsuccessful negotiating their own claim with tugboat. But the attorney then looked at all the documentation that they had done themselves, and I think it was almost a dozen different letters that they had sent disputing this claim. And so it was like, oh my gosh, like now I get to outline to the court, maybe to a jury eventually, and be like, look how hard this homeowner tried to make things known and tried to advocate for themselves. And it's not someone like some mistake that was made. It's like, no, it's so clear that it was intentional and there was a decision here because of this. So all that to say, the person was asking, so what's the point of tugboat when you have CFP? Aaron, you take over for a second here. What's the point of tugboat when someone has the worst policy? Here it's California Fair Plan.
Sure.
Florida might be citizens.
Yeah, in any of these cases, or when a carrier is just taking a hardline stance.
Yeah.
And it's like all of these kind of doom and gloom situations that we're talking about, right? And you can poorly document something. You can document the wrong things. You can hurt your claim in a myriad of ways. And like, we know those, we see them coming. We can identify what those bad faith issues are going to be coming around the corner, and we can make sure you're asking the right questions so that you have clear documentation, so that you actually have a chance at getting these things picked up and getting fair treatment. And oftentimes they don't make it to a lawsuit. When you present the insurance company with this body of evidence, it's like, no, I have the receipts, and you guys have been like not acting in accord with this contract for this entire process.
Isn't that the unlicensed practice of law?
Documenting things?
No, to help someone document things.
I'm pretty sure ChatGPT would try.
I say that obviously jokingly, but I think it is important as often as we can to distinguish like what Tugboat is doing for people. We're not documenting anything for them, right? We're not telling them, hey, you should file a lawsuit. We're never telling them your insurance carrier just committed bad faith, even if we think it. Right?
Yeah, we're careful about that stuff.
Never ever.
Even this is probably talking a little bit more like matter of fact.
Oh yeah, much
than
more
we'd ever talk in a specific
use case. 100%. We're never doing that. That's what's so amazing about it. It's like we never told that user, hey, you need to document this thing because there's bad faith happening now. Hey, you need to ask this question because it's going to expose something with the insurance company is going to do, and you can use that against them later. It was just, hey, keep asking questions. If they didn't answer it, you're going to ask it again in another way. If they didn't answer it, or if they did answer it and it's not sufficient, you can ask it again another way, or you can pivot to another question, right? And if they're denying something but not explicitly, you're going to ask them to do so explicitly, right? Like all these different things. It was just that 10 times over until now there's this paper trail where the adjuster didn't just get to kind of imply something, splatter a bunch of denial language in a letter, and then let that sit there. And then they're protected by the argument of mistake, of genuine dispute, of whatever it might be. Now it's not that anymore. So anyways, Aaron's point is that when it is the worst carriers that are there, it is more important to document this stuff, but worse as well. Not far enough to there. It is more important than ever to document it there, especially if there's a better chance. Hey, your hat says Tugboat now.
I know. I just had to do that.
Yeah, it took me a while to figure that one out.
Yeah, I said code good.
But it can be a challenge to understand why, but it is most important then. Your case is most likely to end up in a lawsuit when you have the worst carrier doing the worst things. And so it was really cool to be able to answer and be like, oh, like I can tell you for a fact from experience with all the hundreds of users we have now that even though you have CFP, we even told them like, hey, it's not like it's not going to make it easy. It's not like suddenly you use Tugboat, your claim's going to be covered with CFP. They're not going to send you the same letter that they send everybody else. They're not. It's like, but here's the reasons why you still want to use it and why it's still going to be helpful.
And quick plug, if you do what you should do and set it for Tugboat before you have a claim, will help you make sure you don't have the worst policy.
Yeah, that's true. Quick plug, pre-loss tools.
And we'll make sure you have the right policy and you're set up to actually have it perform when you have a claim. Then we won't be fighting these battles.
I have to tell you that when I first read that policy, you guys, I thought it was almost like having a piece of paper and going, is that it?
The CFP policy?
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Why it's illegal?
That's right. It's illegal. It's true.
Well, that, but also it's to be so small in words. It is.
Say so much.
Well, it leaves it open for interpretation. That's what they want. That's like just operate in a like the ideal policy from the carrier perspective is one that lets them cover when they want and deny when they want.
Talked about this a lot lately.
Yeah, it's just like, and if they can build one and or get one approved and then redefine the terms later, so that they can make the forms.
I think it's so funny because Stephen Badger has made the point recently, and he said it a lot recently on stuff I've watched of his, that insurance companies hate unpredictability. They want to know, and he's like, you may not believe it, you may think, and this would be where my biggest dispute is on that. Is like, I firmly believe that if an insurance company could have a policy that says we cover things sometimes when we want them to, they would have that policy.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean they don't hate unpredictability. Then they could predict when they cover things.
That's right. Like they
literally predict. Hey, yeah, this time we're gonna cover it.
Exactly.
Yeah, that adds them more predictability. So that actually feeds right in. Steven's right, Cameron.
He's right. He's right. I want to read some pieces, unless
what's our time at?
Rachel, Danielle, if there's anything else you guys wanted to share about that topic. I want to read a couple reviews, mostly to shout out Rachel and the claims support team. And
you get a lot of love. I sent you the link, right, Rachel?
Yeah, I got it. Very touched. Very touched.
I mean, it was powerful reading some of these.
Yeah.
Let me read this one here. I'm just gonna. I mean, honestly,
because she's awesome.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you.
Pick just about any of these. And here's one I haven't even read yet. Let me see. I mean, it's so long.
Yeah.
Let's see, SEMA. I lost my home in the Eaton Canyon fire, and the insurance process has been overwhelmingly difficult to manage. I've been struggling with how to reconcile the gap between the low estimate my insurance company offered me and the actual cost to rebuild my home and get my policy limit. I have no idea how to navigate the system, and Tugboat has been an invaluable resource. I've been matched with adjusters who not only have been hugely supportive, but who also used to work at my insurance company in-house. They know exactly what to do and have provided me with letter templates, spreadsheets, you name it. Thank you so much, Naomi and Rachel. This is where they call you out. And the whole Tugboat team, very grateful for you all. That one's awesome. That one's a little bit older. Are these the newer ones here?
I don't know how. I think it's organizing them just based on how they fit, so that kind of the dates are all over the place. It's just like trying to like tie all of them.
Let me see. There was one. Might have been this one. Navigating our home insurance claim after the Eaton fire has been one of the most overwhelming experiences we've ever faced. The exhaustion of feeling completely lost, trying to understand the fine print, our rights as policyholders, and how to respond when the adjuster is unresponsive or dismissive has been mentally and physically draining. We're deeply grateful to have found Tugboat just a week ago. From the very first message we've sent our questions, we've received clear, knowledgeable, and compassionate guidance. Their quick, thoughtful responses, walking us through each step of the process, translating complex insurance jargon into language that we could actually understand, and helping us to advocate for ourselves in a system that so often feels stacked against homeowners has been truly life-giving. Thank you, Tugboat team. Your insights have given us the confidence to assert our rights with clarity and strength. We honestly don't know how we'd be getting through this nightmare without your support. Tugboat is an incredible ally during one of the most difficult seasons of our lives, and we wholeheartedly recommend them. And this is amazing.
That's awesome.
It's incredible. One person even says how emotionally like they talk about it as if we offered therapy of some kind. It's like, hey, we write messages to you. I know Rachel's really so good at it that she makes her messages responding to people feel like they just went to therapy, which is
They're a hug.
awesome.
It's a hug.
It's a hug. But I think the important thing I want to say is that, Rachel, you can speak because you know who the people are that I just read, right?
Yep.
Have any of these claims suddenly been easy once they started using Tugboat?
Nope.
Have any of them suddenly like all of a sudden hit their claim out of the park because you wrote some letters and some templates for them to utilize?
No.
Really none of them. Right?
Like these fires. It's actually something I was going to comment on too, because like it's a dramatic shift from earlier. Like our early reviews were all about like the increase in the settlement because they're like these one-off claims. But when a carrier comes in and they're like, oh, we have this huge loss opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Let's treat all of these as a bucket and take hard lines on things. And it's now a cohort of policyholders that are encountering a situation. They all encounter these similar problems. And yeah, it's just to still be providing this immense value and help, like when it's not like even reflected in the numbers yet.
Yeah, it's some of these people haven't gotten any more money essentially from using Tugboat. And again, this is one of Aaron and I haven't been right about everything we predicted Tugboat could and should be and would do and how good it would be at it. But one of the things that we've talked about for a long time was that, hey, we want to build Tugboat in a way that no matter who uses it and how successful their claim is, right? How much money or more money they might get from Tugboat, they should feel like the couple $100 they spend to use Tugboat for a claim, and it's free for the wildfires. But if they had to spend $160 to use Tugboat for claim support, that even if they never got another dollar from their insurance company, that we made the process so much more understandable, easier to walk through emotionally, and they felt supported, that should be like a drop in the bucket. Like, oh my gosh, this was so worth it. And that's what this speaks to for me. It's like, oh my gosh, that's what you guys are accomplishing at the claim support team for us, is being able to make people feel like, hey, I can't, there are at least 3 people that use the phrase that we're on their side. They literally just stole Allstate's so that's what Tugboat feels like.
I often say like we deliver on their promises.
Yeah, we deliver on insurance companies' promises. It's so true. But I was reading these last night, and like one of the most heartwarming things to me is like, oh my gosh, I know how rough these claims are going right now. And the fact that dozens of people are flowing in just to say how much better they're feeling about the process because they're utilizing it, I think it's amazing. So anyways, look at that. It's 4:00. That is time for all of us. Rachel, that is a long way of saying thank you so much for the work that you and the claim support team are doing. You guys are amazing.
Thank you.
And it's being reflected in the historical record now.
It's the best feels. Look, it's the best feels. This is wonderful. Like claims don't go like they're supposed to.
Yeah.
I used to love writing checks.
Mm-hmm.
This is kind of better.
Yeah.
Because it's not, I may not get them another penny.
Yeah.
But they feel good about it. They feel because they're in charge.
Yeah.
They know they're in charge because I've told them they're in charge. Their adjuster's not going to tell them they're in charge.
Yeah.
And I don't want to downplay it. They do usually get more money.
I had an adjuster actually tell a client that it's her, like their money, not hers. And I'm like, wait a minute. You pay the premium.
Yep. Absolutely. Well, thank you. Appreciate you both very much.
Absolutely.
We'll see everyone next week again for office hours. Send us any questions you have, and we'll keep you guys updated.